Former eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede and 21 co-accused have all pleaded not guilty to the first of hundreds of counts. That's in the corruption trial that's got underway in Durban. They face numerous counts of fraud, corruption and racketeering related to a multi-million rand Durban Solid Waste management tender. Our reporter Karinda Jagmohan has been in court, joins us now live. Karinda, it's been 2 or 3 hours now of proceedings. Sum up what we've heard so far.
Indeed, well, this morning started with organizing the broadcast application for the media. Remember, this has been a challenge for a while now, and some of the issues were to ensure that a camera can be inside to show you the visuals essentially now of all 22 suspects pleading not guilty to the various charges facing them. The week that will come will see the further reading of this indictment and then each suspect explaining that they are not guilty against the multiple counts of corruption and racketeering. But the NPA's Natasha Ramkisan-Kara will shed more light on what is actually happening, especially with regards to this case years in the making. Let's hear what she has to say.
Well, the accused are facing various counts of the charges, but essentially it's charges of money laundering, racketeering, contravention of the Municipal Finance Act, contravention of the Municipal Systems Act, as well as fraud and corruption.
Now, we imagine that it's going to be quite a long day. You're going to have to read all the counts into a system. How will this happen with 22 accused?
Well, as I mentioned, there are so many accused. However, the processes are still the same. We're pleased as a state that the trial is finally underway, and this is just the first process where the indictment has to be read into the record, and the charges then have to be put to the accused, and then they have to plead, tender their plea in that regard. And then there's also the issue of the fact that there's a translation that needs to be held, so that will also just take a bit longer than usual.
Natasha, there are more than 2,000 criminal charges. How long will it take for the judge to go over each of these charges, and when could we see the actual arguments of trial begin?
In previous court appearances, dates were spoke about for next year, which is 2023 March, I think, to be exact. So obviously this is just the first stage to get the charges read, and then thereafter obviously looking to next year for the actual trial.
Is Natasha Ramkisan-Kara from the NPA speaking on behalf of the NPA, and an explanation there that we might actually see only the arguments of trial take place next year. Right now it's going to be a week-long event of the reading of this indictment. And Mikele, this is a 400-page long indictment where we see the over 2,000 charges listed against these 22 suspects. The first two charges that were read out today include starting a criminal enterprise, so that's racketeering, and the second charge is the management of this criminal enterprise. So that is essentially alluding to the fact that the first accused in this case, Zandile Gumede, used her position of power as the eThekwini mayor during her time when this tender was on the seats of the municipality, that she manipulated this tender, appointing various people who are now suspects in the same case to ensure that they can benefit from this tender. Essentially, at the heart of this case, the argument is that Gumede, being the former eThekwini mayor, along with other city officials and businessmen, siphoned money from the eThekwini municipality through a waste collection tender. And this happened in 2017, allegedly. Now, we'll hear for the next week the reading out of these charges. We do expect every suspect to plead not guilty, and only then we'll actually see dates being set down for the arguments of this, which will be a lengthy process considering there are 22 suspects, and there's also the process of translations that will ultimately lengthen each day of this matter.
There have been multiple delays, Karinda, since those first arrests back in 2019. Is it everyone's understanding from the state and the accused themselves that now we're really fully set to go with the process without any further delay?
Well, that has always been the hopes of the accused in this case. When we have seen Zandile Gumede speaking to her supporters or speaking to the media, she's always saying that she wants this trial to go ahead because she believes that she is innocent until proven guilty. Now, when you look at that, some of the delays inside court has been because some of the suspects could not pay their legal fees. This includes the wife of the former city manager, Sipho Nzuza, so Cynthia Nzuza, and 2 other business owners who said that their assets were frozen during investigations by the state, and so they could not pay out their legal representatives. But at the last pre-trial conference, it seemed that all of those issues were ironed out, and that is why we are seeing the start of the reading of this indictment today, at least. It's unclear whether there might be any further postponements after this, but this is the first step for the trial to go ahead. Prior to this, there had been a number of pre-trial issues that needed to be looked at, including postponements because the state needed more time to investigate. They're using 600 pages of bank documents, 200 pages of cell phone records, and more than 4,000 lines of data that had to be analyzed, which they say is their evidence to link the accused to the corruption that they are speaking about in terms of the record taking and the actual payments from one bank account into another. So again, a reminder is that this tender, the Durban Solid Waste Unit tender, which is responsible for waste collection in and around Durban, was initially valued at 45 million rand to be paid out over 3 months to the relevant service provider. But following this alleged corruption, at least what the state is alleging, is that following the manipulation by the suspects, the tender was inflated and ultimately 320 million rand was paid out by the eThekwini municipality to the suspects involved, and they benefited from this multi-million rand contract. So that needs to be fleshed out before court. We do not foresee any delays at this point, but of course with a new trial date being set, a number of witnesses that need to be called to this court, we're still going to see how the court is going to manage the logistics around that.
Karinda, you were also able earlier to just get a sense around legal fees, who's paying for what, who can and cannot afford to pay for the best representation.
Indeed. Well, it's very interesting to note, Temekile, some of the attorneys inside are some of the best in Durban. Advocate Jay Naidu, who has previously been a criminal advocate for a number of cases. There has been Jimmy House. He's also a big name in terms of the legal industry here in Durban. Zandile Gumede is also represented by quite a high-profile attorney. But she has also spoken about her issues as well. Some of her supporters actually worry that she may not be able to pay her legal fees if this case goes on in the way it is going on, with, of course, legal fees mounting. We did have an opportunity to speak to her in the morning before the court proceedings had started. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Ngeke ngibakhulumele mina ngixoxe nabameli bami senza izindlela zokuthi kancane kancane ngizolokhu ngibakhokhela. Angifili kahle sengiqedile sengiyongena ngaphakathi ngoba the matter is sub judice.
Karinda, Jagmohan will come back to you again in the next hour when the hearing resumes at the High Court in Durban. Thank you.